So we're live. Hello and welcome to the September edition of the Earn, Learn, Thrive LinkedIn Lives. And with me today, I'm delighted to have Michelle Worgan. Michelle's a freelance materials writer who specialises in young learners teaching. And after a teaching career over 20 years, she now also designs and runs her own teacher development courses and self-publishes teaching resources all around inclusive learner-centered approaches. And I asked Michelle to come and talk to me today because I think Michelle is a great example of somebody who has not pivoted completely away from what she was doing before, the materials writing, but added some extra strands into her business, which is something I think that appeals to a lot of people. Because it can help to kind of even out those peaks and troughs of income. And it can also allow us to do things that perhaps nobody's going to ask us to do, but we still want to do. So we're going to talk about the different options that there are, how easy or difficult some of these are, and some of the mistakes and successes that Michelle's had. And indeed, I can also talk about my own experience. So if you're watching live, do say hi in the comments so that we know we're not just talking to each other. And if you have any questions or comments along the way, please do add those. And if you're watching later on replay, feel free to add any questions and we can come back and look at those. So, Michelle, okay, tell us a bit more then about your business and about these different strands.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so I've got, I'd say, three main strands. One of those is materials writing for external clients. So usually these are course materials for primary ELT publishing. And then the other two are courses that I develop for teachers. So at the moment, I've got 2 online courses and resources, which I design. These are downloadable materials for teachers. So as you mentioned in the introduction, Rachel, I've been working with publishers off and on for about 8 or 9 years, I think. And I was still teaching until 2019 before I went full time as a freelance materials writer. And then towards maybe the end of 2021, I started to get a bit, I don't know if disillusioned is the word, but the projects that I was working on at the time, they didn't have a lot of creativity, and I kind of got this feeling that I wanted to do something a bit different, that writing grammar and vocabulary activities wasn't really what I wanted to do, that I could do something else. And I've always, as a teacher, I've always been interested in the kind of bigger picture of teaching and learning, particularly with young learner teaching. And I was always trying to find different approaches to use with my learners that didn't focus so much on the vocabulary and the structures. I actually spent some time using a kind of soft CLIL approach with a couple of my primary groups. I was also kind of interested in things like project-based learning, but at the time I didn't really know much about those things. So as a teacher, I kind of tried to do different things, but never really managed to find the time to really delve into those areas in more detail. And that's what I could do as a freelancer. So I now had more time to explore different approaches, and I decided to focus on inquiry-based learning, which is one of the main areas of my business today. Now, I say business, and I know you're going to laugh now, Rachel, because I don't really like using the word business because I still struggle with that. But the thing is, I never really planned.
Is it a charity?
No, I'm not a charity. But I never really planned on setting up as a business, I just knew that I wanted to do something with inquiry-based learning and share it with the ELT community, but not for free, not as a charity, obviously, because you can't do that. So that's when I took your group program, Flourishing Foundations. And then kind of since then, I've never looked back. So I've got these 2 courses that I run. The first one, which I think in the introduction, the bio, you kind of reference this because it's it's about inclusive approaches. It's about inclusion in the primary classroom. It looks at some of the different pedagogical approaches that we could take. So that was my first course that I designed. And then I designed my Inspiring Inquiries course, which is on inquiry-based learning. And alongside that, I started developing the resource packs, which are kind of an easier way into inquiry-based learning. So that's basically the three strands that I currently have to my business.
And it's interesting what you say about, I mean, as you know, I will take issue with the idea of it not being a business because it's something that you're making a living from. But I do think it's interesting that the starting point was really what you were interested in and what you figured, I think correctly, that other teachers might well be interested in. You know, you were describing yourself, I think, saying that you tried to do different things, but you didn't really find the time to dive into it. And to me, that sounds like you're kind of describing your ideal client as well. Like, you know, that teacher who has this interest, but they need a bit of support and guidance because going away and investigating all of that themselves is just a bit too much. Would you say that's right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think I always kind of have my ideal client in my head as being me, but maybe like a few years ago, or maybe more than a few years ago in some cases, because, you know, I am of a certain age and have been teaching for a long time. But yeah, it's my kind of my aim is to help teachers kind of become better teachers. That's what I want to do, but focusing on these specific areas which are what I kind of specialize in.
Absolutely. Because I think, you know, I think it's important to, the reason I'm sort of bringing that up is because I think a lot of people feel if it's something you're passionate about and you want to help people, that doesn't go along with actually having a business or making money. But ideally, that's exactly what you want to put together, you know, because it's not all about the money, but it can be about the money as well, you know. I noticed lots of people saying hi. Lovely, thank you. It's really nice to know that you're here. And Camilla asked, and I think this is a good question, can you define inquiry-based learning? So let's
I'll try and do a very quick one because usually can go on for a bit about this. So it's a learner-centered approach that's centered around questions. So you have, it's a bit like project-based learning, if you're aware of that. So you the unit, if you want to call it a unit, is based around a question, a central question, and that everything that the learners will do during that unit of work or project will be with the aim of answering that question at the end. That's a really kind of very brief summary, but I do have some videos on YouTube about inquiry-based learning if anybody would like to go and check out my channel, which is called Inspiring Inquiries actually, but I think it's just my name. So if you search for I think Michelle Morgan, it should probably come up as well.
Great. No, thank you. So you mentioned the different strands that you have to your business, and there are some kind of passive income strands there and some active income strands. Is that like the opposite? You know, courses where you're actively involved, shall we say. So was it a deliberate decision to kind of have, you know, both of these sides, would you say? And if so, you know, what was your thinking?
Possibly. I mean, I've gone through, you know, lots of, I've changed quite a few things since I started. So when the first course that I developed, Inclusive Approaches for Primary Teachers, which actually had a slightly different name then, it's gone through several iterations. And it was my first attempt at designing a teacher development course. And I think I struggled a bit. And the way I've planned subsequent courses has been a bit different. And I think I originally did that course live as a 3-week introductory course. And then I very quickly realized that there was far too much content for 3 weeks. And that was why doing it live was really important, because I could see that not everyone could manage the workload, and our live sessions just ended up being really long. So what I did then was I redesigned this course as a 6-week course with video input. So that's not, it still wasn't passive. It's still kind of active. We had in that course 3 live workshops over the 6 weeks. I've now changed it again for the new version. But this time I've created a self-study option. So that would be a passive kind of product, but there's also the option for the traditional one with the live sessions as well. Now they both have the video input, they both have the activities, but one of them has live workshops, the other one doesn't, because some people can't attend the live sessions. There's lots of different reasons why they might not. So I'm going to see, I'm going to keep both options available for this next cohort, and then I'm going to see which one's more popular, and then maybe make some more decisions on that. So I keep tinkering with things and trying out different ways of offering these products, maybe more passive, more active, because I'm not sure yet. I think that really depends on the participants and what they're looking for. I think the resources, that was always going to be something that I could do as well. That would be more passive. It takes time to create them in the beginning, but once they're there, and that frees up a little bit more time for me to do to focus on the more active products, I guess.
I mean, I think you made a really important point about when you're creating something, even if it's a totally asynchronous course. I really agree totally with you that it's important to do it live, and probably more than once, because I think it's really, really hard, even as a experienced teacher trainer and materials writer, to really know how it's kind of going to hit and what people need and what the pace should be and where there might be things missing, unless you try it out, So I wouldn't sort of see that as struggling. I'd see that as actually that's part of the process of developing something that works, And
but I think the same is true with a passive product. You can still do that. You can have, so like I said, I've been changing. But this course, I've recorded the videos again for this time, because since then I did Joga Conga's video creation course, which I think helped, and it's particularly with my presence on camera as well. The first time I recorded it, I was really kind of stilted using the teleprompter, and so I wanted to do them again. And you can, and I've updated some of the content as well. And I think even with a passive course, you can do this. You can go back, you can re-record bits of video, you can change some activities, you can insert new resources as you go along. And I think that's a good thing. That's a positive thing, to iterate, to reiterate, going on the feedback you get from participants.
And the results they get as well.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned about how you noticed that people were, struggling to keep up. And I think you can see when things need a bit more time or need explaining a slightly different way. I have to say I'm always tweaking my program, Flourishing Foundations, the one that you did. I think it's on its 10th run now, just about to start. And I'm re-recording quite a few bits of it again. So I think it is a good thing, and it keeps me interested. It keeps me improving it constantly, which I think is not a bad thing at all. And what was the other? Oh yeah, I was going to say that I also think that people don't always realize how many options there are between a completely live course and a completely recorded course. They tend to be seen as like kind of a binary choice, and actually there's all sorts of things you can do in between, and you can experiment with all of that as well, as you are doing.
Yeah, so actually the passive, the self-study kind of, I'd say that to make it clear, but I don't really like the term self-study. That version of this course, yes, we're not going to have the live workshops, but I am going to offer a couple of drop-in Q&A sessions So that's, yes, it's kind of passive. People will be doing it, but they're still getting the input, the course content each week. It's not like, here's everything, go away and do it. They're still doing it weekly, and they're getting a couple of drop-in sessions in case they need any support. I think that's another option that you can provide.
No, absolutely, which is a great way of approaching it, I think, because we know, research shows that the completion rates on fully asynchronous courses are terrible, because people buy them with good intentions and then never even look at them. So having it kind of over a set period of time, having some accountability, having options to come and ask questions and things is going to really improve people's experience of it and get them better results. Camilla says, how do you monitor your students' progress, Michelle? Now, there's a good question related to what we were just saying.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call them students, first of all, because, they're teachers, and I feel a bit, I don't know, I guess they are students, but I prefer to use participants. I don't really, I don't have kind of assessment built into my courses. Now, I will say that up till now, we've always had live sessions. So in those live sessions, that's when I can see whether they're struggling with any concepts, they need a bit more support, and we can go over things. With the self-study one, they're not going to have that. The drop-in sessions, I guess, are the only way I'll be able to, see how well they're doing. But I don't have like I wouldn't say it was like an ELT course or that kind of thing, where you do have, your process of evaluation and assessment. Don't quite have that. I feel like it's, this is teacher development courses. I feel that it's the teachers themselves need to have that kind of autonomy, and to be able to let me know if they need any help, or and ask questions. And we have a community as well, apart from the self-study one. We have that community where I do try to foster a lot of conversation and discussion. So hopefully in that community, that will be another place where there's possibility for just for checking in and seeing how things are going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I'm introducing, saying I'm tweaking my course, and one of the things I'm introducing this time around is milestones through the course. So I've got like 5 milestones where they have to submit something, and it just kind of makes sure that we're progressing. But I think it depends so much on the nature of the course, because mine is, a 3-month course with about all sorts of different things within the realm of business, whereas yours is focused more on a specific kind of area. So, they're apples and pears really anyway, so they are going to be different. Moving on to, talking about the passive income products. By the way, just to sort of clarify, just for anybody who isn't sure, when we're talking about like sort of passive products, we don't mean that the participants are passive. We mean that we are not having to do as much. We're still going to be doing stuff, but we're not having to do as much in terms of the course as you would be if you were teaching it fully live. And I don't actually really like the term passive income, because it does imply that you don't have to do anything, and that is not the case, is it, Michelle? So
I was going to say that actually.
So how do you find with your so-called passive income products, i.e. your packs, how does that work in terms of actually kind of selling them, I guess, and where do you have them? How does it all work? Where do you sell them?
So everything at the moment is directly on my website, michellewalgan.com. However, I've just set up Thrivecart, so I'd probably be moving some of my sales pages for the courses over there. But for the resources, they're going to stay on my website. There's a section called resources, and that's where the resource packs are sold. I do have profiles on Teachers Pay Teachers and Eduki, but I haven't actually done anything with those, and I haven't made any sales from them. But I haven't done anything, so I've not promoted, I've not shared. That's kind of something that I will do one day when I feel like I've got time to focus on that. But I mean, ideally, I'd want to sell them on my website anyway, because you actually get 100% of the the income from it, which you don't on the other platforms. But I do think they do kind of open up to a wider audience. But like I said, that's something that I need to work on.
Well, I think there are those sort of two ways of approaching it, and you can do both. So as you say, if you have it on your website, then you have to kind of do the marketing, but it pays off because you get 100% of the sale. But there's no reason why you can't also put them on other platforms like Aduki and Teachers Pay Teachers, optimize it as much as you can in terms of the keywords. And the more you add, I mean, it's a bit like YouTube in that way, the more content that you add, the more likely it is that people will find you. And hopefully that will kind of gradually snowball. And you shouldn't then have to do too much on those platforms other than just keep adding new stuff, if you see what I mean.
I think you probably do need quite a lot, though, like quite a few different things. So if you've got very small things that you can sell, then that might be the best way. If you've got something that's quite large, then you're not going to have so many. It is probably going to be more difficult to do that on TPT or whatever platform.
No, I agree. I think you'd need to kind of break it down, because it's the more things that you have with all the right keywords that then kind of makes it easier. And particularly if things are in a series and they're related. So people think, oh, I've got that one, perhaps I should try this one, and that kind of thing. But it's not, people do often think that it is just a question of creating something and slapping it up somewhere, and that's it, they're set for life. And unfortunately, that isn't how it works.
No, that's something that I kind of wanted to be honest about this and to say it's not easy to sell passive income products, and I find it very difficult to sell my passive products in particular. And I don't want to sound negative, but it's hard to get people to part with their money quite often, and you have to kind of, particularly with maybe a more expensive product like a course, you need to build that relationship with people before they'll be willing to buy. They need to know who you are. They need to, trust you. And with passive income products, that's harder. If it's a cheap thing, you need to sell a lot in terms of quantity, and that means reaching a lot of people. So yes, if you've got lots of small things and you can be on a platform where that it's going to reach lots of people, then great. But if you've got something that's a bit more substantial, I think that's quite tricky. It depends on what you're selling, though. I mean, I'm selling something that not many people know about, and so they don't even know it exists unless they've been to one of my workshops or webinars or something.
Yeah, you mean inquiry-based learning.
Limited audience. But if you've got something that people are actively looking for, then I'm sure it's much easier. And it's like you said, Rachel, it all passive income products require a lot of time, like a lot of time spent on promoting them. And that's probably something that I haven't done enough of. I've not spent enough time promoting my resource packs, for example. People aren't going to find them unless I promote them. And you mentioned keywords, and that's another thing that I need to still work on. If your keywords are good enough, then people might find them on the first couple of pages of Google if they are actively looking for them. So you said you didn't like the word passive, and actually you have to be very active in order to sell something that's passive. So it's kind of an oxymoron, really.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, sometimes people use the term recurring revenue, and I think that's a bit better, although it applies more to something like a membership, because then you kind of know what's coming in. But that's probably a better term. I mean, I think the other thing about passive income, and I've got a few passive income products myself, so I know this, is that it's difficult sometimes because people look at it and they're interested, but there's no particular reason for them to buy it now. Whereas if you're running a course, there is that sense of, if I miss this cohort, then I'll have to wait until January or whatever. Whereas with something that's asynchronous and always available, I do think that's one of the issues, is that people just kind of think, oh, I'm a bit busy at the moment, and then never get around to it. So that comes back to marketing, because perhaps you need to be planning, you know, how you're going to bundle things together, make special offers, add bonuses, you know, all of this kind of thing, to kind of give people that little nudge into, okay, now would be a good time, rather
so
than
I think this is one of the issues, and kind of a point that I wanted to make, is that if you're considering, you know, creating some passive products, is that, and going back to the time that it takes and how you have to be so active and you have to do a lot of promotion. And personally, this promotion and the social media is what I enjoy the least. And so I want to spend my time creating the materials and designing the courses. I don't want to be spending hours and hours creating and, you know, promo posts. And I do spend a lot of time on Canva and you know, interacting with people on social media. That makes me sound like a horrible person, not a very sociable person. I'm not, but I don't want to be spending most of my day doing that stuff. But that's what you're probably going to have to do at the beginning, especially, I think, with a passive product, unless you can afford to employ somebody to do that stuff for you, which, you know, I think is a long way down the line, at least for me.
Yeah, you probably need to be selling quite a lot of products to be able to do that. Yeah, I mean, I think this is why you know, people enjoy the sort of creative side of it, but don't necessarily think through the other side of it. But there are, you know, there are the options of the platforms, and they will take a slice, but that is an alternative. And that also, I think you can use, you know, things like Pinterest, for example, is a good option for those kinds of things, because they stay there. And again, like YouTube, it just sort of builds up gradually over time. So there are different options. But yes, I think you make a very good point. So we're coming towards the end. We do have a question, actually, that we haven't answered, from Lena. So Lena says, do you have any tips on fostering conversation in your community?
Well, generally, I think teachers are quite good at, you know, interacting with each other in online groups. But what I do is I post questions that are part of kind of like the homework tasks, and I post those in the groups so that it's a bit more, what's the word? It's got, they've got something specific that they need to talk about. So they're sharing their answer to a question or whatever. And I keep, you know, saying, you know, please do interact, please answer people's questions, please comment, and just try to create a nice, friendly atmosphere within the group. And I think start doing this from the start of a course is really important. So from the before you start getting into any of the content, try to kind of create that community with some questions, some activities. Encourage people to get to know each other. It can also be nice to start, I think, with a live session. I've done that sometimes as well. So before I've actually given them anything, we've had maybe I've given them a couple of pre-tasks, and then we've had a live session where we can actually meet each other in person on Zoom or whatever. And then that's quite helpful, I think, rather than just starting off in a Facebook group.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do that on mine as well. And I totally agree with you about the structure. You know, I think we have to see ourselves as like the host of the party. And it is kind of our job, if you like, to do everything we can to, you know, make the party go well. And that is telling people sort of what the expectations are and setting up tasks so that, you know, they actually have something to talk about and all of that kind of thing. But I agree with you. I think it's probably a lot easier for us, because we work with teachers, than it would be working with students, where they're also you know, very concerned about their English and what people might think of them and all of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, well, we've come to the end of the 30 minutes. I think this was actually quite a big topic and we could have talked about this a lot longer. But I think there's some really useful, helpful things that have come up there. So thank you very much for that, Michelle. I will be writing a related newsletter, and I'll talk about some of the things that came up in this chat and kind of perhaps go into a little bit more depth on some of them. Looking at the comments, so Nicola's saying wonderful project and content, pity I don't teach primary. And yeah, well done, Michelle, keep up your great work. Thanks for another insightful session, Rachel. Well, thank you. It's all about the guests, so thanks very much, Michelle. Thank you everybody who's been watching us live, that's brilliant. And anybody who's watching later on replay, please do feel free to add any questions or comments and we'll come back and have a look at them. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.